You've seen them, right? The gorgeous sugar skulls, the fields of bright orange marigolds. But what's really going on with Dia de los Muertos? It's this incredible cultural tradition that honestly is so often misunderstood. So today, we're going to dive in and explore what it's truly all about, a joyful, beautiful reunion.
This quote just nails it. At its heart, this celebration isn't about being scared or about things ending. Not at all. It's all about memory. It's a powerful, beautiful way to keep the people we've lost, well, with us. It's about actively choosing to remember, instead of just letting them fade into oblivion. Okay, so first things first. Before we get into what this holiday is, we have to talk about what it is not. So let's just tackle the biggest misconception right out of the gate. Let's be super, super clear here. Dia de los Muertos is not Halloween. I mean, yeah, they happen around the same time of year and they both involve spirits, sure. But their hearts, the entire reason they exist, they are worlds apart. So think about it like this. Dia de los Muertos is all about a heartfelt reunion. It's focused on love, respect, and celebrating the lives that were lived. Halloween, on the other hand, is a spooky night of frights and mischief. One is about welcoming spirits home as honored guests, while the other is, well, often about being scared of them. So what's the core belief here? Well, the idea is that for a very brief period each year, the border between our world and the spirit world gets thin. A door opens up, and the souls of the people we've lost get a pass to come back and visit. But, and this is key, they're not scary ghosts. They're honored guests coming home for a huge, happy family reunion. All right, so where did all this come from? This amazing tradition didn't just pop up out of nowhere. No way. Its roots go back, way back. We're talking 3,000 years of history, mixing ancient beliefs with newer ones to create the incredible celebration we see today. Okay, let's break this down. Way back in ancient times, you had indigenous groups like the Aztecs. They held these huge, month-long rituals honoring the dead, presided over by a goddess known as the Lady of the Dead. Then, fast forward to the 16th century. The Spanish arrive, bringing Catholicism. And what happens? The old ways start to blend with the new, specifically with All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day. Then, jump all the way to the early 1900s, and an artist creates the single most famous face of the holiday, helping shape it into the global tradition we now know. There's actually a word for this kind of cultural mashup. It's called syncretism. And Dia de los Muertos is like the perfect example. You have these ancient pre-Hispanic ideas about life and death being a cycle, and you fuse them with Catholic traditions of honoring saints and praying for souls. The result is something totally new and beautiful. Now, let's talk about her. You know exactly who I'm talking about. The elegant skeleton lady in the big fancy hat. She's everywhere. That is La Catrina, the modern Lady of Death. But here's the wild part. La Catrina isn't some ancient goddess. Not even close. She actually started as a political cartoon. Yep. Around 1910, an artist named José Guadalupe Posada drew her to make fun of Mexicans who were adopting European fashions and forgetting their own indigenous roots. The message was sharp. You can wear all the fancy hats you want, but underneath it all, we're all just skeletons. Death is the great equalizer. Pretty powerful stuff, right? So if you're going to welcome your family back from the spirit world, how do you actually do it? Well, the whole celebration centers around one thing, a beautiful temporary altar known as the ofrenda. I mean, really, think about it. If your absolute favorite people were making this incredibly long journey just to spend one night with you, what would you do? You'd pull out all the stops, right? That is exactly the thinking behind the ofrenda. And this is a really important point. An ofrenda is not for worship. It's not about praying to the ancestors. It's a welcome station. Think of it as a spiritual welcome mat, a 5-star banquet, and a landing strip for souls, all rolled into one. It's lovingly prepared with everything the spirits need to feel refreshed and nourished after their long trip. And every single thing on that ofrenda has a job to do. You've got photos, so the right spirits know exactly which house to visit. You put out their favorite foods and drinks because, hey, they're going to be hungry after that journey. Water is a must to quench their thirst. Candles light the way so they don't get lost. Then you have the famous sugar skulls, the calaveras, which are this fun, colorful reminder about the sweetness of life. And of course, the vibrant petals of the cempasúchil, the marigold, create a fragrant, colorful path for the souls to follow right to your door. Speaking of that flower, the cempasúchil, It has this absolutely beautiful story behind it, an ancient Aztec legend that explains exactly why it's the flower of the dead. It all begins with two childhood sweethearts, Xochitl and Huitzilin. Their love was the real deal. They used to climb a mountain together to offer flowers to the sun god, Tenadiu, and ask him to bless their union. And he did. But their happiness didn't last long. Huitzilin was called away to war, and tragically, he was killed in combat. Xochitl was just completely heartbroken. She went back to that same mountain and pleaded with the sun god to reunite her with her love. Moved by her grief, the god cast a golden ray upon her, transforming her into a beautiful flower. At that very moment, a hummingbird, the reincarnation of Huitzilin, was drawn to the flower. As it landed gently on the petals, the flower bloomed open into the radiant cempasúchil. And so the legend says, as long as marigolds and hummingbirds exist, the love of Xochitl and Huitzilin will live on forever. This is so much more than just an ancient legend. It's a living, breathing tradition that's celebrated with incredible diversity across Mexico and, now, all over the world. And the celebrations look wonderfully different depending on where you are. In Oaxaca, altars are built with specific levels for different cosmic planes. In Michoacán, you can see these solemn all-night vigils in candlelit cemeteries. In parts of the Yucatan, there's a practice of respectfully cleaning the bones of loved ones. And in Mixquic, near Mexico City, the cemetery just glows during La Alumbrada, lit by thousands and thousands of candles. And this tradition really took on a new life in the United States. In the 1970s, it was embraced by Chicano activists as this incredibly powerful way to affirm and celebrate their indigenous Mexican heritage. It became a key expression of community pride. In recognition of just how important this tradition is, UNESCO officially declared it an intangible cultural heritage of humanity back in 2008. That's a huge deal. It's basically the world saying, this celebration is a cultural treasure, and it's essential to who we are. When you get right down to it, Dia de los Muertos teaches us that death isn't an ending, but a continuation. It's a powerful statement that our loved ones are still a part of our lives, which raises a question for all of us, doesn't it? How does remembering where we come from help us understand who we are today? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a tradition that's steeped in history and spirit, a practice that kind of echoes from a time long, long before our modern world. We are talking about Pangangaluluwa. So let me set the scene for you. It's late October in the Philippines. You've got groups of people, sometimes they're in costume, and they're going from house to house, singing in the middle of the night. And for their performance, they get little gifts, maybe some cash or some snacks. Sounds super familiar, right? I mean, it's basically Halloween trick-or-treating, or is it? Yeah, not even close. This tradition is called Pangangaluluwa. And here's the twist, the thing that changes everything. The gifts, the songs, this whole late-night ritual, it's not actually for the people singing. It's for the souls of the departed, who are believed to be on a really, really important journey. To really wrap our heads around what's going on, let's first take a look at how this tradition is playing out right now, today, in a town that's been working really hard to keep it alive. Okay, so let's head to Sariaya, in the province of Quezon. Here, the local tourism council brought Pangangaluluwa back to life in 2005. So for a few nights, from October 27th to the 30th, groups go out into the night. And what's so interesting is the costumes. You'll see some people in spooky, ghoulish outfits, classic Halloween stuff, but then others are wearing these beautiful, formal gowns. They sing and they dance for the homeowners, and in return, they collect donations. It's become this really vibrant community event. But even though the modern version feels like a fun festival, the name itself, Pangangaluluwa, is the key. It's like a secret password that unlocks a much, much older story, a whole spiritual world that was around way before any modern holidays. To really understand this, we have to go on a journey ourselves, right into the heart of the tradition, into the ancient Tagalog understanding of what a soul even is. So the whole thing is built around this one word, kaluluwa. In the Tagalog language, that's the spirit, the soul of someone who's passed away. So Pangangaluluwa, when you break it down, literally means an act for the souls. And this is where ancient Tagalog beliefs get absolutely fascinating. The idea was that a person actually has two kinds of soul. While you're alive, you have your kakambal, which literally means twin soul. This is the soul that goes traveling when you sleep, the one that has your dreams. But when a person dies, that kakambal transforms. It becomes the kaluluwa. And that's the spirit soul that now has to leave the body and start its great journey to the afterlife.
So the most important part of this whole thing is the journey. When someone passes away, their soul doesn't just, poof, appear at its final stop. No, it has to travel. And according to these ancient beliefs, there were two very, very different places it could end up.
On one side, you have Maka. Think of it as a peaceful, happy place full of joy and abundance for the souls of good people. It's ruled by the top god, Badala. But on the other side, there's Kasamaan. This is a village of sadness and pain for those who are evil, and it's ruled by a deity named Sitan. So, as you can imagine, the stakes for this spiritual journey were incredibly high.
Okay, so we've got a soul on this dangerous journey trying to get to a very important destination. So, what in the world does any of that have to do with people singing at your front door?
Exactly. How can a group of singers possibly help a spirit find its way from our world all the way to the peaceful realm of Mekai?
And this is where it all clicks. The whole thing is symbolic. The singers, they are the Kaluluwa. They represent the wandering souls of the dead. Traditionally, they would even wrap themselves in white blankets to look like ghosts. Their song isn't just a song, it's a plea, a message from the spirit world asking the living for prayers and for alms. And those alms, that money or food they collected, were seen as offerings to help those souls on their tough journey, to make sure they got to Makala safely.
There's this quote from an elder in Saliyaya, born way back in 1920, that just gives me chills. She remembered being told as a little kid to peek through the window to see the singers in their white blankets. And she said, the voices of the carolers are like coming from under the ground. I mean, that just gives you a sense of how spooky and spiritually powerful this whole tradition felt. And the songs themselves? They spell it all out. Check out some of these traditional lyrics. The souls are arriving in front of the window, waking up those who still have life. It's like a direct announcement from the spirits. But then it gets urgent. We may be shut from the doors of heaven. Now, the word here is kalongitan, which is heaven, and that shows how the tradition changed a bit over time. But in the original context, they would have been talking about getting to Makapu. The message is crystal clear. You have to help us, or we might not make it.
So with these incredibly deep, ancient roots, how is a tradition like this doing today, here in the 21st century?
Well, the tough reality is that in a lot of places in the Philippines, Pangangaluluwa is kind of a fading memory. A local historian from Sariaya said, kind of sadly, I no longer see children doing Pangangaluluwa. And like a lot of ancient customs, it's at risk of just being forgotten.
And that is exactly what makes the revival in a place like Saraya so incredible. It isn't just about putting a local spin on Halloween. It is a very deliberate, very conscious choice to hold on to a piece of pre-colonial Filipino identity and to share it with a whole new generation. So you can see how the tradition has had to adapt to survive. The original purpose was deeply spiritual, helping souls get to the afterlife. The modern purpose? It's more about the community. In Sariaya, the money they raise now goes to civic projects, like funding the town's big Christmas nativity scene festival. And this is how culture stays alive. The reason might shift, but the legacy, that core idea of remembering the dead and bringing the community together, that lives on.
And that really brings us to our final thought here. Pangangaluluwa is so much more than a song. It's this powerful, living link to an ancient way of seeing the world. It's a way of remembering not just people, but an entire spiritual universe. And it kind of makes you wonder, what ancient traditions, maybe hiding in plain sight all around us, connect you to your own ancestors? Today, we're diving into this incredible tradition in Guatemala where these giant, absolutely beautiful kites fill the sky. And they're not just for show, they're seen as messengers to another world. We're going to look at what this tradition means, the challenges it's facing, and, believe it or not, how architecture might just be the key to keeping it alive. So let's start with this one big question, right? How can something as simple as a kite, a thing of paper and sticks, actually become a bridge to the spirit world? It's a pretty wild idea, and it's really at the heart of this entire story.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll check out the sheer spectacle of these giant kites. Then we'll get into their deep spiritual meaning.
After that, we'll see the problem the community's up against, look at a really cool architectural solution, and finally see what this all means for their future. Okay, let's kick things off with the main event, the kites themselves. We're talking about a sky absolutely full of giants. So picture this. Every single year on November 1st, the skies over Guatemala just erupt with color for the giant kite festival. This is a huge part of their Dia de los Muertos celebrations. For over a century and a half, families have been honoring their ancestors by flying these massive, unbelievably decorated kites. So yeah, they look amazing, but what's really going on here? This is where we get into the why, the incredible meaning behind all of it. The belief is just beautiful. The idea is that for this one day, the line between our world and the spirit world gets super thin. And these kites, the Barriletes, they soar up into the sky, acting like messengers, carrying notes and prayers from the living to the souls of family members who've passed on. It's all about a joyful reunion.
And this is a really important point, just to clear things up. It's easy to think of Dia de los Muertos as kind of like a Mexican Halloween, but they couldn't be more different. Its roots are in ancient Aztec cultures that saw death as just another part of life, not something scary. So while Halloween is often about being scared of ghosts, this is about happily welcoming them home. But as this amazing tradition gets bigger and more popular, it's hitting a very real, very modern wall. Let's zero in on a town called Sampango, which is a real hub for all this. The problem is, the very culture that makes this place so special is literally running out of room. The traditions are growing, but the buildings just aren't. And this quote right here, it just nails the problem. You can feel the passion, right? To build these kites. I mean, some are meters and meters wide. These groups have to scramble. They're renting temporary spots, or they're all cramming into a spare room in somebody's house. It works, but, it's not a real long-term solution. And it's not just about the kites. Look at this list. The problem is community-wide. The local music school, the dance troupes, the painters, even their biggest town festivals, they're all happening in these makeshift, borrowed spaces. The town is bursting with culture, but it's lacking the basic infrastructure to actually support it. So what do you do? This is where things get really exciting, because there's a thoughtful solution on the table. The big idea is to build a dedicated municipal cultural center right there in Sampango. And this isn't just going to be any old building. It would be a permanent home, designed from the ground up to meet the very specific needs of all these artists and traditions. And the design is super smart. It gets into things like architectural acoustics, which, okay, sounds complicated, but it's basically the science of sound. Think about it. If you're building a space for music and dance, you can't just throw up 4 walls and a roof. You have to design it so the sound actually works with the performers. So what does that actually mean? Well, it means the rooms are designed to block out street noise. It means the walls and ceilings are shaped so a singer's voice or a guitar note travels perfectly to everyone in the audience without getting warped. The whole point is just pure, clean sound. And you can see how it all comes together in the blueprint. There are dedicated rooms for theater and dance, specific practice rooms for music. And, this is key, huge art studios with high ceilings, big enough for giant kite making. They've even got a special hall just for the traditional marimba. They've thought of everything. So let's say they build it. What would a center like this actually mean for the people of Sampango? Let's talk about the real-world, long-term impact. I mean, this is so much bigger than just a construction project. This is about a town putting a stake in the ground and saying our culture matters. Our traditions are the heart of who we are, and they are worth protecting. It's an investment in their own identity. And the benefits would just ripple out. Artists finally get the professional space they deserve. It gives young people something positive and productive to do, getting them involved in their own heritage. And we know that the arts are amazing for developing creativity. Ultimately, a center like this is the best way to make sure these traditions get passed down. And honestly, the need is only getting more urgent. The population of Sampango is already over 44,000, and it's growing fast. More people means you need more community hubs. You need a dedicated place where all this culture can continue to live and breathe. So, as we wrap this up, it kind of leaves you with this one last thought. The people of Sampango are fighting to build a physical home for their culture. And it makes you wonder, right? What are the traditions in our own communities that are so important, so core to who we are, that they're worth building a home for too?
Okay, so when you think about Halloween costumes, your mind probably jumps to ghosts, superheroes, the whole shebang. But over in Japan, a viral trend has totally flipped that idea on its head. It celebrates the stuff that's hilariously ordinary, brilliantly boring. Let's talk about Mundane Halloween. So first, you gotta understand what mainstream Halloween looks like in Japan. When it took off around the 2000s, it went big. We're talking absolutely massive street parties like the one at Shibuya Crossing in Tokyo. The cosplay is just incredible. Super elaborate, high-effort stuff. It's a huge spectacle. But what we're looking at today is the polar opposite. It's this clever, low-effort alternative for people who, and I love this quote from the founders, are just too embarrassed to go all out in witch or zombie costumes. It's basically an anti-Halloween, a celebration of the everyday. All right, so what exactly is this anti-Halloween? How do you master the art of being just perfectly, hilariously mundane? What are the rules here?
Well, the whole concept is baked right into the name, Jimi Halloween. The word Jimi, that's pronounced Jimi, means plain, subdued, or mundane. The entire point is to find the humor in the most ordinary, relatable parts of our lives.
And there's a really simple philosophy behind it. First, you're not a character like Dracula. Nope. You are a very specific situation. Second, you just use your normal clothes, maybe grab a simple prop you already have lying around. And third, this is the most important part, the costume is usually so subtle that the explanation is the whole joke. That's the punchline.
So where on earth did this brilliantly simple and, let's be honest, slightly awkward idea even come from? Okay, so after Tokyo Disneyland really kicked off the modern Halloween craze in Japan back in 2000, things just got bigger and flashier every year. But then, in 2014, a group from the Japanese meme site Daily Portal Z wanted to get in on the fun but felt, a little too self-conscious for the big, flashy costumes. So they invented their own low-pressure version. And what started as a small get-together has totally blown up into this huge annual event, thanks in large part to social media. All right, now for the best part, the costumes themselves. This is where you really see the witty, understated genius of this whole thing. Let's run through some of the greatest hits. So simple, so effective. It's just perfect. Anyone who wears glasses has lived this exact moment of sudden temporary blindness. It's the ideal example of taking a tiny universal frustration and turning it into comedy. You can just feel the half-hearted enthusiasm here, can't you? This costume just nails that specific feeling of corporate-mandated fun. You can practically hear the internal sigh of someone who's already worn the Santa hat, the bunny ears, and now this. We all know this person. The spotless white outfit, the designer bag clutched safely away from any potential ketchup splatter. She is here to socialize, not to flip burgers. It's a perfect, instantly recognizable social archetype. Just brilliant. This isn't just a costume. It's a whole story in one picture. That look of pure, unadulterated panic, the newspaper rolled up and ready for battle, it captures that moment of intense domestic terror perfectly. We've all been there. You're not going to sleep until that thing is found. And here you go. This is how you know Jimi Halloween is keeping up with the times. This is more than a costume. It's a commentary on internet culture, right? That constant quest for viral fame, our weird relationships with our pets. It's modern life in a single hilarious image. So you have to ask, why? Why did this small, kind of silly idea born from social awkwardness turn into such a massive cultural hit? Well, there are a few pretty clear reasons. For one, it's super low pressure. It's a quiet little rebellion against the cost and effort of big commercial holidays. The humor is also just so relatable. We're laughing because we see ourselves or people we know in these situations. It reminds us that there's comedy all around us in our everyday lives. And of course, it's absolute social media gold. A photo plus a caption explaining the joke, that's a recipe for going viral. Honestly, Jimi Halloween is just such a refreshing and witty take on holiday celebrations. It reminds us that some of the funniest, most human moments are the small, unglamorous ones we all share. So it really just leaves one question. What's that tiny, awkward, or frustrating moment from your life that would make the perfect mundane costume?